FC. W5FC.
I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Checking into this net late, and that's the first time I've ever heard that. That was amazing. KWIN GBD.
I'm still trying to figure out what kind of a tone that is when the repeater on keys. It sounds like a Quindar tone almost. KC3 CDU.
That is, in fact, the exact idea and goal, NT5TN.
How do I get it on my all-star note? I want that tone. Every time I unkey, I hear doot-doot. I'm like, I don't want that. But it does sound like a Quindar tone.
Hey, it's time, everyone. This is KE5ICX. Yes, it almost is Quindar tone. I think they're slightly different from the transmit and the receive. But at any rate, that doesn't matter right now. What does matter is it's time for Skynet. Does anybody need to use the repeater before we begin? This is Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray. My name is Tom. I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, which we did talk about last week, astronomy and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic. We encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign break with your outdoor voice and your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic? Please come out. This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me this evening, and stations are reminded the ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on this frequency with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. Just go to the club website, which is whiskey5friedchicken.org right now for the complete list. And remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur operators are welcome. You need not be a member of any club to participate. The net is around 90 minutes long and is structured in a bunch of parts. First one, general announcements. 2, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events. 3, National Space Society events. 4, the discussion topic of the evening. 5, was up. 6, space exploration and space history. 7, constellation of the week. Number 8 is space launches of the week. Number 9, recent astronomical discoveries. 10, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days. 11, astronomical Q&A, and 12, the 73 round. We sometimes do not get to all of them, but we get to all the important ones. Remember, everybody is welcome to check in. We'll start out with low-power, short-time check-ins. If you are one of those, please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from. Let me know if you're low-power, short-time. Please come now.
Number 5, Whiskey Oscar India, William and Allen, short time.
Golf, Uniform Sierra, Gus, far northeast Dallas, low power.
What?
All right, I got 2 out of the 3. I got N5WOI, William in Allen, short time. I got W5QS, Gus, low power in Dallas. And there was another station. Go ahead. All right, any other low power short time, please come out.
AHA, Chaz, Mesquite, low power, 5 watts.
I picked up another one. I've got TF5JHA, Chaz, low power, Mesquite. Does anybody have anything they want to bring to the net now before you disappear who has checked in already? Please come to your call. Good, we will move on to general check-ins. If you'd like to join us, please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, and where you're transmitting from. General check-ins.
Kilo, Golf 5, Uniform, Foxtrot, Romeo, Jacob in Dallas.
Med Control, this is Kilo Charlie 3, Charlie Delta Uniform, Kilo Charlie 3, Charlie Delta Uniform, Timothy, Westmoreland County, New Florence, Pennsylvania.
Foxtrot 5, Zulu, Bravo, Lima, Bill, Palmer Springs.
Alpha Delta 5, Sierra Echo, Chuck in Richardson.
Kilo, India 5, Golf, Charlie Kilo, out of Fort Worth, Texas.
1, Golf Bravo Delta, Guy in Lake Highlands, Dallas.
This is Kilo India 5, Golf Romeo Hotel, Melissa, Northeast Dallas.
Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brendan DeSoto.
Kilo, Golf 5, Zulu, India X-Ray, Joe and Wiley. Golf 5, Uniform, Foxtrot, Romeo, Jacob in Dallas.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo, Bill in Irving.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Papa, Papa, Hotel, John, Plano.
Kilo 5, Kilo, Tango X-Ray, Kelly in Quinlan.
This is 5, Delta Mike Charlie, Brian in Roanoke.
All right, let's hold up there. I'm going to need a couple of fills. There were a couple of doubles, and I had one double-double. So let me get who I have, and then I'll get the fills. I've got KG5 UFR, that's Jacob in Dallas. KC3 CDU, that's Timothy, somewhere in Pennsylvania. I got you on Echo Link. Thank you for checking in. Let's see here. I also got KF5ZBL, Mr. Bill, Farmers Branch. 85C, that's Chuck in Richardson. I've got KI5GCK in Fort Worth. Could I get your name, please?
KI5GCK, and the name is Richard. Back to you.
Thanks. KI5GCK, that's Richard in Fort Worth. I've got K1GDB, that's Guy in Lake Highland. I got KI5GRH, that's Melissa in Northeast Dallas. I believe WB50, no, I can't be right. The WB5 call, could you give me your call again? I think I wrote somebody else's call down, and your name and location. Never mind, I know who that is. It is Brenda. I wrote down Brian, and never mind, I got you, Brenda. KG5ZIX, that's Joe and Wiley. KG5 UFR, Jacob, oh, I've got you already checked in, Jacob. And then N5BB, Bill in Irving. KG5PPH, John in Plano. K5KTX, Miss Kelly in Quinlan. And I got a question mark 5DMC, that's Brian in Roanoke. Brian, could you give me your call again?
Yes, sir. That's Kilo Bravo 5, Delta Mike Charlie, KB5 DMC.
All right, thank you. Additional check-ins, please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, and where you're transmitting from.
This is Kilo 5, Kilo Oscar Bravo, Philip from Crandall.
Kilo, Foxtrot 5, Delta Echo Bravo, Jason in Plano.
Whiskey Alpha 5, Papa Charlie Romeo,
Larry in Arlington. Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Whiskey. Okay, no weather. This is Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James in North Carrollton.
Very good. I got 5 more on that. K5KOB, Philip and Crandall. K5DEB, Jason in Plano. WA5PCR, that's Larry in Arlington. KG5BZWJ near Weatherford. KG5WVL, that's James in North Carrollton. Any additional over air, and then I'll move to Echolink. Additional over air, please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from.
November 5, Oscar Foxtrot, Clay in Mesquite.
Tango Mike, Tony in Dallas.
Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean in Fort Worth.
Very good. We have 3 more on that. I got N5OF, Clay in Mesquite, NT5TM, Tony in Dallas, and KB9SOK, Sean in Fort Worth. I'm going to move over to Echolink. Anybody over on Echolink would like to join us by voice? Please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from. If you don't have voice, you can chat in the box there that you are listening in, and I will acknowledge you. So Echolink, please come with your call sign, name, where you're transmitting from. I will give you extra time. Please go ahead.
Kilo 5, Juliet, Delta Whiskey, John in Norman, Oklahoma.
Kilo Golf 5, Zulu Mike Golf, Joe in Arlington.
Whiskey 0, Mike Bravo Charlie, Shane.
And Bethany, Blue Springs. Hi, Dallas.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Papa Delta Sierra, Billy and Sherman.
All right, I got 4 on that one. I got K5JDW, John, up in his winter home in, well, maybe, Norman, Oklahoma. KG5ZMG, that's Joe in Arlington. I got W0MBC, that's Shane and Bethany in Blue Springs. Thank you guys for checking in. And also KF5PDS, Miss Billy over in Sherman. All right, I'll open it up to anyone who would like to check in. Please come now with your call sign, name, where you're transmitting from.
This is Bravo number 4, Mike Foxtrot, India, WV4MFI, Ted, Dallas, low power.
I got WB4MFI, Ted in Dallas, one of our regulars. Thank you all for checking in. We'll go ahead and get started. Next up is general announcements. Does anyone have any general announcements for this evening's net? Taken to ham, astronomical space, or of general interest to licensed hams? Please come out. hearing none. Usually there's a few, but we'll see what happens. Let's see. We got the standard litany of nets and things going on. AMSAT, the amateur radio satellite group, has two nets to Dallas, actually 3 available. Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. You'll need Echolink installed and you registered. You can find it under groups and AMSAT. A live audio link is also available at www.amsatnet.com. This net originates in Houston, Texas. There are 2 nets in Dallas locally, the Dallas AMSAT Net East, Dallas-Fort Worth, every Tuesday at 8 p.m. on this repeater, 146.880 megahertz with a PL10 of 110.9er. Tom and 5 HYPs, net control, are welcome to check in, unless it's the first Tuesday of the month, DRC meeting night. So then there will be no net because Tom will be at our meeting. Dallas AMSAT Net West is every Wednesday night, in case you miss out on the net at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater, which is 147.140 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9er with a positive offset. Amateur Radio Club has a bunch of nets on Monday evenings. For the first through the 5th week, we have at 7 o'clock for each of these nets, Ham Fixin's Net, which is all about cooking. The second week is MCOM 101. You want to learn about emergency communications. There's folks there from all the different served agencies, representatives of the served agencies, and some practice that goes along with it. Anybody is welcome to attend that, 7 p.m. Third week is Second Helping of Ham Fixin's Cooking Net. Fourth week is GeekNet. Anything you want to talk about, amateur radio, computers, you name it, it's there. And the 5th week is the Surprise Net, which is about 3 or 4 times a year. If we told you what it was, it wouldn't be a surprise. And on-air participation is encouraged. Sometimes there's even prizes to be included with it. So it could be question and answer stuff. Let's see, Tuesdays, we have AMSAT Net. Oh, I already mentioned that. I got to take that out of there because I've already mentioned it. Fridays is Cert City Simulation at 7:30 p.m. Learn about emergency radio communications via Cert-trained amateur radio operators. Melissa, who's checked in here, KI5GRH, usually net control. Visit the most disaster-prone city in the universe every Friday, Cert City. All are welcome. And then Saturday is our Night of Nets. We have TechNet from 7 to 8, which just concluded here a bit ago. We have Skynet from 9 until 10:30. And then we have the Afterglow Movie Net after that. Don't forget, too, first and third Sundays, we have the Dallas Amateur Radio Club meeting on the air, or MODA. And then daily, from 12 noon until about 1 o'clock, Monday through Friday, is the Lunch Bunch Net. There's always a survey question and eat lunch with us. We also have at 6:30, 7 days a week, the ARRL National Training Net. Learn about message handling. This is a training net, so you can do no wrong. You'll get a lot of good information on how to be a part of a formalized net. Of course, all are welcome to check in on any and all of those nets. Tonight's Afterglow info, which I will give. Everybody listen carefully because I spend a lot of time accurately portraying the information on the Afterglow net. So here it is. Dr. Werner stepped around his office. He watched My Fair Lady over 200 times and tried to hide his very German accent. He peered into the mirror and began, "The rain in Spain falls mainly in the homeland." Another failure. Werner ditched the riding crop in Monaco when Colonel Bright Eyes knocked at his door. "Dr. Werner," she said, "the Brooklyn Dodgers are on tonight. You'll want to catch at least a few brewskis and watch?" Werner replied, "No, I have a party, a Boy Scout meeting I must attend." The year was 1970, and they had a spy on the space station. Who could it be? Join us for a mysterious mission to the moon with Project Moon Base from 1953 tonight at 10:30 p.m. It even has Dr. Bellows in it. Yeah, that guy. You can keep up with all the DARC events, news, and activities by going to the club website, which is whiskey5friedchicken.org. Well, I did a bunch of check-ins. We're up to 31, so we'll skip that for now, and I'll come back a little later. Let me go to Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope. Anybody out there who would like to talk about Texas Astronomical Society, please come out.
Yeah, 5 JHA.
Yes, please go ahead. The net is yours.
Mr. Net Control. The next Texas Astronomical Society Club meeting will be on Friday, March the 26th, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. with Michael Gorton. He is the Chief Executive Officer of Back to Space, based in Richardson, Texas. And his talk is titled Back to Space. Wonder what that's going to be all about. You need to go to the meeting. As club members will receive an email link to the Zoom meeting in advance of the meeting, usually about a week ahead of time. Hopefully, later this year, TAS will resume having face-to-face meetings and will resume having public observing sessions. I really hope so. Check their website, texasastro.org, for updates and information and details about this and more. I think that's all I've got for now, Mr. Net Control. This is KF5JHA, back to KE5ICS.
Thank you, Chaz. You always do such a wonderful job, and we really appreciate it. Plus, you got a lot more you have to do later on, and we appreciate it even more. All right, let's see here. We have, let me see here. Next up is National Space Society of Events and Activities. I'll get it right. A little out of practice. It's been a month or two. So, Bill, N5BB, what do you have for us this evening?
KG5ZIX.
KG5ZIX. Go ahead, Joe.
I can tell you a little something about SpaceX down at Boca Chica, South Texas, if you're interested.
Joe, go ahead, and then after that I'll send it over to Bill after that. Go ahead with what you got. This is KE5ICX.
Well, you know, they've had about 3 space launches, tests, and they all failed miserably and blew up. But my mom and dad live about 5 miles from that launch center, and they can look at their back porch and see what's going on over there. And they tell me that there's been several loud noises, so I think they're testing some more engines, and there may be another space launch coming. I'm not sure if that's available on the news. Anyway, FYI.
Thanks. I am pretty sure there is another one coming up, SN10, or is it 11? I think it's 11 that they're planning. I mean, they have a bunch of these, and they've been successful. When we say failure is that we're getting spoiled. SpaceX has been able to land their rockets in first stages. Well, let's put it this way, first stages of the Falcon 9 rocket and the Heavy, and that's become normal, but that hasn't been the normal until SpaceX came along. So this thing is huge. It's extremely large, bulky rocket, and they're getting better at it. But and hopefully, if it's going to be human rated, it's going to have to be perfect or pretty close to it. So hopefully they'll get that figured out. Each launch and recovery or landing has been getting better and better. So I'm hoping for the best, and I think that mission will go probably. It'll be at least 2 weeks. They got to test the engines before they do anything else. So I think it's actually SN11, which is the next one. All right, let me go to Bill. Bill, N5BB, National Space Society of North Texas. What do you have for us tonight, Bill?
Okay. I think maybe now my turn. This is N5BB. I happen to be the membership director of the National Space Society of North Texas chapter. Our monthly meetings are the second Sunday afternoon of each month. So our next meeting is tomorrow afternoon at 4 p.m. I have a warning. Daylight saving time switches over tomorrow morning at 2 a.m. So don't forget to set your clocks ahead. How do you remember this? You spring ahead in the spring, and you fall back in the fall. So make sure you set your clocks ahead an hour, or you will be off by 4 p.m. tomorrow afternoon, by an hour. Our topic is going to be Perseverance, Martian geologist. So one of our members, Cynthia, was in that, and her husband Dietrich, who are both hams. Cynthia's N5TFB, and Dietrich or Whiz is KI5L is his new call, I believe. Anyway, they will be talking about the geology experiments on Perseverance, which is the Mars rover that landed recently. If you have any interest in listening to this presentation, or if you have any other questions about joining the National Space Society or the North Texas chapter, please contact me, Bill Byram, either at n5bb@arrl.net or space@byram.net. That's spelled BYROM.net. That's all I've got, Tom. We can't do in-person presentations or meetings yet because of the COVID restrictions and our wish to stay safe. But eventually we'll get back to meeting every month in 5BB.
Good, thank you, Bill. And you may be interested in this. Amy Ross, who was one of your speakers, I think last month, maybe the month before, I think it was last month, was on television this morning talking about spacecraft, space suits, I'll get it right, which was quite interesting, and was able to bring one in and show the new designs and things. So that was quite interesting, and I thought her presentation was excellent. In fact, all your speakers are exceptional. So I really enjoy it. If I can get in and remember to do it on a Sunday afternoon, which is always a bit odd for me because I'm usually doing things on Sunday, and sometimes I forget if I am available. But I'll try and remember, and thank you for reminding me from time to time when the meetings are. Okay, this is KE5ICX, net control for tonight's Skynet. So I get to pick the topic. Let me find something here. And what I did was, a lot of times I go through and look to see what was popular on this day in history. And March 13th was kind of curious, from 1968. And I get this information from Astronomics. It looks like I lost. There it is. Astronautics. It's called ASTRONAUTIX.com. And they give you day-to-day, daily historical items. Gave me a hint for what I wanted to present for tonight, and it is March 13th, 1968. On this day, 53 years ago, before the first manned Apollo launch, the Soviet space program formalized their own plans to land cosmonauts on the moon. Now, you can remember this was top secret. They were not making a big deal about this because they weren't sure if they were able to do it. On this date, it says Russia. See if I can decode this because it's all done with some keywords. It says Soyuz 7K LOK. Oh man, they don't give me the first name, but I think it's Alexander Titov was going to Italy, along with one of his scientists, and to Hungary to discuss the 30-month program for the L3 lunar landing to be settled. Cosmonauts already began training in January. The first LK lunar lander would be tested in low Earth orbit in the second half of 1969. The first Soviet manned lunar landing could not take place any earlier than 1970 or 71. The resolution had set the date as of 1967 or 68, but the N1 and L3 were not ready in time. The L3 was still conceptual, a purely paper spacecraft. The first N1 would have been moved to the pad by March of this year, but it would not make that milestone by May. Let me zip down. There's some stuff about the astronauts themselves and who were selected. But what I wanted to talk about is, let's see if I can pull the article up in the way that I wanted to read it. It says, following the dual American successes of the first crewed lunar orbit on 24-25th, the first moon landing on July 20th, 1969, and a series of catastrophic N1 failures, both Soviet programs, which were eventually brought to an end. There was the Proton-based ZAD program, canceled in 1970, and the N1L3 program was de facto terminated in 1974. So what were these things? And what was this all about? And why were there two programs for the Russians to go to the moon? Well, as early as 1961, Soviet leadership had made public pronouncements about landing a man on the moon and establishing a lunar base. However, serious plans were not made until several years later. Sergei Korolev, the senior Soviet rocket engineer, was more interested in launching a heavy orbital station and crewed flights to Mars and Venus. With this in mind, Korolev began the development of a super heavy N1 rocket with a 75-ton payload. What was called the Soyuz 7K, 9K, and 11K circumlunar concept. The drawing shows Soyuz 7K. That's what I'm showing on the screen, or you can go to W5FC and you can follow along there. And a Soyuz V and a Soyuz 11K tanker with a twin whip antennas. How about that? I guess they had CV on board. I'm not sure. In its preliminary moon plans, Korolev's design bureau initially promoted the Soyuz ABC circumlunar complex, or ABV as it is in Russian, concept under which two crew spacecraft, that would be two-man crew spacecraft, would rendezvous with the other components in Earth orbit to assemble a lunar flyby excursion module. Components would then be delivered by a proven mid-size R7 rocket. That's what you see the Soyuz launch on all the time with those kind of fin-like strap-on boosters. They've been using the same basic rocket design since Sputnik. I have a comparison also of the N1 to the Saturn V. Later, Korolev managed to increase the payload of the N1 to 92 to 93 tons by switching to liquid hydrogen in the upper stages and increasing the number of engines in the first stage from 24 to 30, providing enough power to accomplish a mission in a single launch. What was considered his competitor, Vladimir Kolomy, I think I pronounced it right, another main design bureau, was headed by him, proposed a competing CIS lunar orbiting mission by using the heavy UR-500 rocket, later renamed the Proton rocket, and a two-crew LK-1 spacecraft. Now, the Proton rocket also has flown before, and was developed and finally went into space. Now, that one, the Proton, which there's a picture of, you can see, was used to launch, actually, the Zarya, the Zvestia module into orbit that was used on the International Space Station. But there was also another, is the UR-700. All I have is a model that it looked like. If you look carefully, it looks suspiciously like what was used to launch the Russian space shuttle. Kolomy also proposed a moon landing program with a super heavy UR-700 rocket and an LK-700 lunar lander. The Soviet government issued a response to the American Apollo challenge after 3 years. According to the first government decree about the Soviet crewed moon missions, adopted in August of 1964, he was instructed to develop a moon flyby program with projected first flight by the end of 1966. Korolev was instructed to develop a moon landing program with the first flight by the end of 1967. The change with Nikita Khrushchev to Leonid Brezhnev in '64, the Soviet government in September of 1965 assigned the flyby program to Korolev, who redesigned the CIS lunar mission to use his own Soyuz 7KL-1 spacecraft and Chalomy's Proton rocket. Korolev organized full-scale development of both programs, but died after surgery in January of '66. According to government decree, in February of '67, first crewed flyby was scheduled for mid-1967, and the first crewed landing for the end of 1968. By a three-stage Proton rocket, the L-1 Zod was a spacecraft from the Soviet family and consisted of 2 or 3 modified modules of the main craft. The Soyuz 7KOK, with a total weight of 5.5 tons. The Apollo orbital spaceship for the lunar flyby also had 2 modules, a command and service, but was 5 times heavier, carried a crew of 3, and entered lunar orbit, whereas the L-1 Zod performed a flight around the moon and came back on a return trajectory. Planned for December 8, 1968, for priority over the U.S., the first crewed mission of the L-1 was canceled due to insufficient readiness of the capsule and the rocket. After Apollo 8 won the first lunar flyby phase, actually it went into orbit for the moon race in the end of 1968, the Soviet leadership lost political interest in the L-1 Zod program. A few reserve units of the L-1 Zod made up unpiloted flights, but by the end of 1970, this program was canceled. The crew landing plan adopted a similar method to the single launch and lunar orbit rendezvous of the Apollo project. For mission safety, weeks before the crewed mission, the LKR uncrewed L3 complex and 2 Luna Hood automatic rovers would be sent to the moon to work as radio beacons for the crewed LK. That's the lander we're talking about there. I guess I didn't explain it. And the LKR used controls for the cosmonauts, both to transfer to the LKR in the or further research. I also have a picture and a comparison between the command service module, lunar module docked, and then the assembled Soyuz LOK, and then the landing craft that was fit underneath. The 7KOK was half the mass of the 3-crew Apollo command ship, and the LK, called Leniki Korage, you tell me how it's pronounced, accommodated only 1 cosmonaut. That's the landing. So think LK and lander. So the Soviet plan was only 1 cosmonaut would land on the moon. The mass of the LK was 40% the mass of the Apollo lunar lander. The L3 complex to be placed in low Earth orbit by the N1 was 93 tons, compared to 137 tons by the Saturn V. The booster for the LEO towards the moon for the Apollo vehicle was provided by the last stage of the Apollo, of the Saturn V. Then they go into some technical details about the types. We'll skip. But during the L3 complex's journey to the moon, there would be no need to undock and redock the orbital and landing craft as was done in Apollo, because the cosmonaut would transfer from the LOK, that's the orbital, to the lander, the LK, by a spacewalk. On Apollo missions, the transfer was done through an internal passage. The Block D was flown to the LOK and LK into lunar orbit, while with Apollo, this phase was undertaken by firing the engine on the service module to slow the complex and enter lunar orbit, since the Apollo complex traveled with the command module. Let's see. In orbit, the LK would separate from the LOK and descend toward the surface of the moon using the Block D engine. After Block D exhausted its fuel, the LK was to separate and complete landing using its own engine. On the moon, the cosmonaut would take moonwalks, use lunar hoods, collect rocks, and plant the Soviet flag. After a few hours of the lunar surface, the LK's engine would fire again using its landing structure as the launch pad, as with Apollo. But to save weight, the engine used for landing would blast the LK back to lunar orbit for an automated docking with the LOK. The cosmonaut would spacewalk back to the LOK carrying rock samples. The LK would be cast off, after which the LOK would fire its rocket for the return to Earth. Krylov's death in 1966, along with various technical and administrative reasons, as well as the lack of financial support, resulted in both programs being delayed. There was a plan for a total of 18 missions related to the N1L3 project. After the U.S. moon landing in 1969, justification for the Soviet lunar landing program has largely evaporated, although development and testing continued into the 1970s. Oh, and by the way, this is KE5ICX. In 70-71, the LK was ready for 3 uncrewed tests in low Earth orbit. They flew as Cosmos 379, 398, and Cosmos 434. The LK launched one as Cosmos 382 with a dummy of the 7K LOK. The lunar spacesuit support systems were tested. 4 N1 test launches in 1969. There were 2 of them, 1970 and 1972. They were all failures despite improvements after each crash. Second launch on July 3rd, 1969, in an attempt to upstage Apollo 11 by 13 days, resulted in the destruction of the rocket and the entire launch complex, which delayed the N1L3 program for 2 years. In an automatic moon flyby, these 2 launches of the N1 carried the 7K L1S spacecraft and the dummy 7K LOK, and a regular 7K LOK. With a dummy LOK, yeah, I know. It's just different hardware with weight, and they don't do anything. It's just a matter of making sure that the rocket, when it launches, is properly balanced and configured for what they want to do. Apollo 8 did that, in fact, carrying a weight for the lunar module, because they had to have the weight and balance appropriate for having a lunar module. So this stuff was not unusual. Unfortunately, all the similar names that kind of makes it complicated to talk about. N1L3 program was canceled, as was a modified multi-launch N1F-L3M program. Would have taken more time to get to the moon than Apollo. So that would have been a multi-launched mission. I didn't know about that, but it does make sense because the United States had a similar possibility too and had dabbled with that with the Saturn 1B. Crew space efforts subsequently concentrated on the development of space stations on several designs and ground preparatory processes for the Mars missions, which continues to the present day, but has unclear objectives. So what would have happened had the Soviets managed a landing on the moon before the Americans? Well, history diverges in the series For All Mankind, which I'm going to hawk right now, which was not entirely following a real timeline, but I suspect had the Soviets successfully launched the N1L3, the 3 of them up to the 69, or the 2 of them through the 69 mission, they might have beat the Americans to the moon. So if you get a chance to see it, watch For All Mankind. It's in the 2nd season. It talks about had the space program never stopped the space race with moon bases and heading to Mars and all that crazy stuff. Very interesting program. It's done by Denise and Michael Okuda. They do a lot of the technical work. You may remember them from Star Trek. Okay, that's it here from me on the topic for this evening. Next up is, let me go ahead and see if there's anybody else who would like to check in. Anybody who would like to check in or any questions, please come now with your call sign phonetically. Hey, hearing none, we will continue. I'm checking no messages on Echo Link either. So next up is What's Up? That would be Chaz, KF5JHA. Chaz, what's up? From KE5ICX.
This is Chaz, KF5JHA. My degree's in astrophysics. I'm the astrophysics lab manager at Dallas College on the Brookhaven campus. We call this segment of Skynet, What's Up? That was slide number 1. Thank you, Slide Master. Slide number 2. If someone has not mentioned it, and he already has, Bill already said this, we change our clocks in a few hours at 2 a.m. and go forward by 1 hour to 3 a.m. This makes us on Central Time Zone Daylight Saving Time. It's singular, Daylight Saving Time. So we spring forward. Don't forget that. Spring forward by an hour. So before you go to bed tonight, set your clock ahead by an hour. Slide number 3. This year, on the weekend of March 12th and through the 14th, that's right now, would be a great time for a Messier Marathon. I talked about Messier Marathon last week. If you missed it, then go back and listen to an archive on YouTube. But the weather is not cooperating. In fact, we've got a line of thunderstorms, not severe at this point, that are moving our direction, but they're going to weaken, and they've already weakened quite a bit. That's why I'm here live on Skynet, rather than being a pre-recorded segment. Is what we were looking at maybe doing. Slide number 4, please. On March the 20th at 4:37 a.m. Central Daylight Time is the moment of the vernal equinox. Let's explore this. The Earth revolves or orbits the Sun, and compared to the Earth's orbit, the Earth is tilted on its axis by 23.5 degrees. If we plot the path of the Sun in the sky over the course of the year, we see what is called the ecliptic. More on the ecliptic in a moment. Slide number 5, please. If we extend the Earth's equator out into space, this is what we call the celestial equator. This is the basis for the coordinate system in the sky. Let's get back to the Earth for a minute, though. Slide number 6. You should be familiar with the latitude and longitude on the Earth. Latitude is measured in degrees above and below the Earth's equator. The equator is at 0 degrees. The north rotational pole is 90 degrees north, or oftentimes is written as a positive 90 degrees. The south rotational pole is 90 degrees south, or oftentimes written as a negative 90 degrees. Now, slide number 7. Longitude is defined by beginning from the north-south line drawn through the center of the pier of the telescope at the Royal Observatory located in Greenwich, England. Why there? Back a long time ago, when Europeans were exploring the New World, there was a competition between France and England for the placement of the prime meridian, or in other words, 0 degrees longitude. France wanted it to go through Paris. England wanted it to go through England. I guess you know who won. We measure the longitude east and west from England up to 180 degrees. West is often shown as a negative, and east is often shown as a positive. Slide number 8, please. The system in the sky is similar to that on the Earth. The celestial equator is the start of the celestial latitude. We call this declination. It is measured in the same way as latitude is on the Earth, degrees above and below the celestial equator. The south celestial pole is 90 degrees south, or written as a negative 90 degrees. The north celestial pole is written as a 90 degrees north, or as a positive 90 degrees. Each degree is divided into 60 minutes, and each minute is divided into 60 seconds. These are angular, not time, angular measurements. Slide number 9, please. Celestial longitude, called right ascension. Now, there is no England or France in the sky, so there's nowhere we can start the right ascension, right? Well, there are 2 points in the sky where the path of the sun, we call that the ecliptic, talked about that a minute ago, intersects with the celestial equator. The point where the sun is traveling northward along the ecliptic and crosses the celestial equator is the beginning of right ascension. This is 0 hours of right ascension. Right ascension is divided into 24 pieces that we call hours, and each hour is divided into 60 minutes, and each minute is divided into 60 seconds. Again, these are angular measurements, not time measurements. Slide number 10, please. Earth's axis of rotation does not always point in the same direction. It points at one place and then another point. It wobbles just like a toy top when it's spinning. It wobbles. If we plot this wobble of the Earth's axis of rotation, it looks like a circle in the sky. This wobbling motion is called precession. The Earth takes about 26,000 years to go through this precession circle one time. Because precession is so long during our lifetime, we don't see much of any change. So precession causes the north rotational pole to point in a different direction over time. That changes the entire coordinate system. Right now, the star Polaris is almost directly at the Earth's rotational north pole. 5,000 years ago, when the Egyptians were building the pyramids, the North Star to them was Thuban, a star, and Draco the dragon. About 13,000 years ago, the bright star Vega was the North Star, and it'll be the North Star again about 13,000 years from now. This slow moving causes our coordinate system of right ascension and declination to slowly move over time. So when astronomers publish a star map, we indicate what year or epoch the coordinate system is being used. Right now, most astronomers use star maps with a year of the epoch of 2000. This is KF5, JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide number 11, please. Let's get back to something practical. We have the spring or vernal equinox and a fall or autumnal equinox. On both of the equinoxes, the sun rises directly east and sets directly west on those two dates. The dates of these equinoxes vary by a couple of days due to our calendar having an extra day every 4 years. This calendar variation is a whole other discussion that Billy has covered about a year ago on Skynet. Slide number 12, please. One more thing. 1 week from now, on March 20th, that's a Saturday, 2021, if it's clear, get up in time to watch the sun rise directly east, and in the evening observe the evening sky for the sun to set directly west. The sun rises directly east and sets directly west on the 2 days during the year, the equinox, the vernal equinox and the autumnal equinox. Slide number 13, please. Moon is new today on March the 13th. On March 17th, the moon will be at apogee, the point in which the moon's orbit is directly furthest from the sun, from the Earth, The moon will be at its first quarter phase on March 21st. On March 28th, the moon will be full. On March 30th, the moon will be at its perigee, which is the point in the moon's orbit where it is closest to the Earth. Slide number 14, please. Of March 19th, which is the birthday of a famous astronomer. The moon and Mars will be found just to the upper right of the Hyades star cluster in Taurus. The Hyades is the V-shaped group of stars that make up the face of Taurus Cybele. Okay, slide number 15. On April the 6th in the early morning sky, covering about 12 degrees, you can find the conjunction of Jupiter, Saturn, and the moon. Sky. Hope it's clear on one of these times. Slide number 16. Exploring the evening of April the 16th sky, you will find the planet Mars and the moon in conjunction in the western sky. This is KF5, JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide number 17. Once again, the Texas Astronomical Society Club meeting will be on March the 26th at 7:30 p.m. Michael Gordon is the featured speaker talking about Back to Space, which he's the executive officer, chief executive officer of that organization. Members will receive an email with a Zoom link in advance of the meeting. If you want more information, go to texasastro.org for updated information. Now, slide number 18. I want to welcome the students from Dallas College on the Brookhaven campus that are listening and watching the Skynet tonight, either probably on YouTube or Facebook. I should have announced this earlier at the beginning of the net. Students, due to spring break, we will not be giving credit for listening or watching Skynet tonight, nor next week. The next Skynet sessions can be used for class credit will be on March the 27th. I announced this last week anyway, too. Slide number 19. So, let me see. Oh, I want to find out if anybody out there has any questions. If you have a question or just need an answer to something or more information about something I've said, please come now with your call sign.
Check-in, Alpha Charlie 9, Kilo Victor. Name's Romy, mobile in Bedford. Thank you.
Mr. Net Control, did you get that?
I got him, and I'll need his credit card number later. Back to you, KE5IC.
Okay, that sounds good. Slide number 19, please. So as the moon wanes during the first part of March, so these words for this segment of Skynet: stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. It's the only one where humans live. And until next week, keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is KF5JJ, back to our net control, Tom, KE5ICX. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Chaz. You can go powder your nose and come back because you got another segment here in a few minutes. This is KE5ICX. I do recognize AC9TV, Romy, and Bedford. I'll take additional check-ins. If you'd like to join us, please come now with your call sign, your name, where you're transmitting from.
Golf 5, Echo Lima, Charles and Keller. I really have no traffic equipment.
You went quick. KG5 Echo Lima for November. And where yet?
Golf 5, Echo Lima, Charles and Keller, Texas.
Good, okay, I've got you. KG5EEL, that's Charles and Keller. Thank you for checking in. Anyone else? Please come out.
Kilo 5, Bravo Papa, Bernie, Mobile, Louisville, Texas.
I got K5BB, Bernie, Mobile, and Louisville. I bet he's leaving his office and headed for home. I'm just guessing on that one. Very good. Got you both checked in. Let's see. Next up is, let me get back to my stuff here, Space Exploration and Space History. Tonight that would be Kelly. Miss Kelly, K5KTX, the net's yours from KE5ICX.
Thank you, Tom. This is K5KTX. Good evening to everyone. Well, look up to the night sky just before dawn or after dusk, and you might see a faint column of light extending up from the horizon. That luminous glow is the zodiacal light, or sunlight reflected toward Earth by a cloud of tiny dust particles orbiting the sun. And for those of you trying to do a Messier marathon, know it well because it sometimes interferes in efforts to get those first few objects checked off before they set for the night. Well, astronomers have long thought that the dust is brought into the inner solar system by a few asteroid and comet families that venture in from afar. But now, a team of Juno scientists argues that Mars may be the culprit. They first published their finding online on November 11th, 2020 in the Journal of Geophysical Research, Planets, with a final peer-reviewed paper published last week on March the 9th, 2021. An instrument aboard the Juno spacecraft serendipitously detected dust particles slamming into the spacecraft during its journey from Earth to Jupiter. The impacts provided important clues to the origin and orbital evolution of the dust, resolving some mysterious variations of the zodiacal light. Though their discovery has big implications, the scientists who spent years studying cosmic debris did not set out to do so John Jorgensen, a professor at the Technical University of Denmark, designed the 4 star trackers that are part of Juno's magnetometer investigation. These onboard cameras snap photos of the sky every quarter of a second to determine Juno's orientation in space by recognizing star patterns in its images, an engineering task essential to the magnetometer's accuracy. But Jorgensen hoped his cameras might also catch sight of an undiscovered asteroid. So he programmed one camera to report things that appeared in multiple consecutive images but weren't in the catalog of known celestial objects. He didn't expect to see much. Nearly all objects in the sky are accounted for in the star catalog. So when the camera started beaming down thousands of images of unidentifiable objects, streaks appearing then mysteriously disappearing, Jorgensen and his colleagues were baffled. Jorgensen and his team considered many plausible and some implausible causes. There was the unnerving possibility that the star camera had caught a leaking fuel tank on Juno. It wasn't until the researchers calculated the apparent size and velocity of the objects in the images that they finally realized something. Dust grains had smashed into Juno at about 10,000 miles per hour, chipping off sub-millimeter pieces. As it turned out, the spray of debris was coming from Juno's expansive solar panels, the biggest and most sensitive unintended dust detector ever built. Juno launched in 2011. After a deep space maneuver in the asteroid belt in 2012, it returned to the inner solar system for an Earth gravity assist in 2013, which carried the spacecraft towards Jupiter. Connorny, Juno's magnetometer investigation lead, and Jorgensen noticed that the majority of dust impacts were recorded between Earth and the asteroid belt, with gaps in the distribution related to the influence of Jupiter's gravity. According to the scientists, this was a radical revelation. Before now, scientists have been unable to measure the distribution of these dust particles in space. Dedicated dust detectors have had limited collection areas and thus limited sensitivity to sparse population of dust. They mostly count the more abundant and much smaller dust particles from interstellar space. In comparison, Juno's expansive solar panels have 1,000 times more collection area than most dust detectors. Juno scientists determined that the dust cloud ends at Earth because Earth's gravity sucks up all the dust that gets near it. That's the dust we see as zodiacal light. As for the outer edge, around 2 astronomical units, or AU, from the Sun, with 1 AU being the distance between Earth and the Sun, it ends just beyond Mars. At that point, the scientists report the influence of Jupiter's gravity acts as a barrier, preventing dust particles from crossing from the inner solar system into deep space. This same phenomenon, known as orbital resonance, also works the other way, where it blocks dust originating in deep space from passing into the inner solar system. The profound influence of the gravity barrier indicates that the dust particles are in a nearly circular orbit around the Sun. And the only object we know of in almost circular orbit around 2 AU is Mars. So the natural thought is that Mars is the source of this dust. The researchers developed a computer model to predict the light reflected by the dust cloud, dispersed by gravitational interaction with Jupiter that scatters the dust into a thicker disk. The scattering depends only on 2 quantities, the dust inclination to the ecliptic and its orbital eccentricity. When the researchers plugged in the orbital elements of Mars, the distribution accurately predicted the telltale signature of the variation of zodiacal light near the ecliptic. While there is good evidence now that Mars, the dustiest planet we know of, is the source of the zodiacal light, Jorgensen and his colleagues cannot yet explain how the dust could have escaped the grip of Martian gravity. They hope other scientists will help them. In the meantime, the researchers note that finding the true distribution and density of dust particles in the solar system will help engineers design spacecraft materials that can better withstand dust impacts. Knowing the precise distribution of dust may also guide the design of flight paths for future spacecraft in order to avoid the highest concentration of particles. Tiny traveling at such high velocities can gouge up to 1,000 times their mass from a spacecraft. Juno solar arrays escaped harm because the solar cells are well protected against impact on the back, or the dark side of the array, by the support structure. And by the way, for you trivia buffs, Brian May, the guitarist for the rock band Queen, did his doctoral thesis on the zodiacal light. And I have read a little bit of it, and it's pretty interesting. Now, in space history this week, starting with March the 11th, back in 1960, Pioneer 5 was launched from Cape Canaveral Air Force Station to begin research on the space between Earth and Venus. The spacecraft carried 6 scientific instruments used to measure magnetic field phenomena, solar flare particles, and ionization in the interplanetary region. Pioneer 5 sent over 3 billion bits of data back to Earth at a maximum speed of 64 bits per second. Regular data transmissions lasted only until the end of April 1960. The last communication of any sort with Pioneer 5 came at a then record distance of 22.5 million miles on June 26, 1960. Data from Pioneer 5 confirmed the existence of magnetic fields throughout our solar system. On March the 12th, 2015, NASA's 4 identical magnetospheric multiscale, or MMS, spacecraft launched from Cape Canaveral. The MMS mission is the first space mission dedicated to studying a phenomenon called magnetic reconnection, a process thought to be the catalyst for some of the most powerful energy explosions in our solar system. The process occurs when magnetic fields connect, disconnect, and reconfigure explosively, which releases bursts of energy. The MMS mission's goal is to provide the first 3-dimensional views of the reconnection happening in Earth's magnetosphere. As of March of last year, the MMS spacecraft has enough fuel to remain operational until 2040. March the 13th, but way back in 1781, astronomer William Herschel was searching for binary stars when he noticed something else. At first, he believed it to be a comet or a star, but many more observations led to the conclusion that it must be a planet beyond the orbit of Saturn. This made William Herschel the first astronomer to discover a planet with the aid of a telescope. He wanted to name his discovery Georgium Sidus, or Georgian Star, in honor of his patron, Britain's King George III. However, that name didn't stick. Instead, and in keeping with the tradition of deriving planetary names from classical mythology, the planet was ultimately named for the Greek god of the sky, Uranus. And grade school teachers have probably been disappointed by that outcome ever since. And in astronaut birthdays for this past week, March the 7th in 1936 was Loren Acton. He was on the STS, the Space Shuttle mission STS-51F. On March the 10th, 1961, Laurel Clark, who unfortunately we lost on the STS-107 Columbia mission. March 11th, 1956, Curtis Brown, who was a 6-time space flyer on space shuttles STS-47, 66, 77, 85, 95, and 103. And March the 12th, 1923, was Wally Schirra. He was part of the Mercury Atlas 8, Gemini 6A, and Apollo 7 missions. And finally, March the 12th, 1963, Patricia Robertson, who finished all of her astronaut training, but unfortunately did not make it to space. She died in a 2001 private plane crash, which was 1 year prior to her scheduled first space flight. And that's all I've got this evening. This is K5KTX. Back to you, Tom.
Kelly, and this is KE5ICX Net Control for tonight's Skynet. I'll go ahead and take some check-ins. Everybody who would like to check in, please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from. All right, Well, we will move it right along. We had healthy check-ins at the beginning of the net, so I think we have few stragglers. Everybody reached class on time. Chaz, you're back. Actually, you better be back. K5JHA, it's your turn again from KE5I6.
Yes, this is KF5JHA. I wish I could get extra credit for checking in on Echolink as well as on radio. Okay, anyway. Slide number 20, please. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Silent Key Carolyn, KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week, almost from its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019, with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations in the Texas skies throughout the year, out of the 88 total constellations, Miss Carolyn covered the entire sky in a year. In her honor, we've continued the tradition of a constellation per week. Miss Carolyn's constellation of the week this week is Gemini, the twins. Okay, so the twins, Gemini, is Latin for twins. Two stars, Castor and Pollux, are the brightest stars in the constellation, and they're named after the twin brothers who were predominant in Greek and Roman mythology. Pollux was immortal and Castor was mortal. Upon Castor's death, Pollux asked Zeus to let him share his immortality with his brothers so they could stay together. As such, they were put together first in the sky. Okay, slide number 21. You've been all waiting for this. That's the reason why you're still staying on Skynet. I know. The jokes of the week. Okay, I put a prompt over here in Echolink. I told everyone they needed to laugh at these. Okay. What did the drummer call his twin? Notice this is related back to the constellation of the week. What did the drummer call his twin daughters? And a 1 and a 2. Okay. I failed calculus exam because I was seated in between two identical twins. It was very difficult to... They should get this. She's on Echolink. Differentiate between them. Oh, come on, that's funny. It's a math test, too. Twin brother prefers to take the stairs, but I like the elevator. I guess we were raised differently. All right, let's see now. Oh, where am I? Oh, I don't want to repeat them. Did you hear the one about the twin boys born in Mexico? Once you've seen Juan, you've seen Jamal. Okay, that was a stretch. Yeah, I know. What do you call a pair of identical twin cats? Okay, and finally, the last joke in this series. I didn't need to hear those applause out there yet. Okay. A friend just told me that his daughter and my wife look like twins. I said, well, they were separated at birth. Okay, that's the best I got, I guess. Slide number 22, please. Help me get out of this. Castor is a mobile star system that lies about 47 light years away. Visually, in a telescope, it appears as two white stars, just 2.2 arc-seconds apart. These are Castor A and Castor B. There's a third, much fainter member, Castor C, also known as YY Genorum, separated from it by 72 arc-seconds. Each of these three visible stars is a spectroscopic binary, so Castor is a system of 6 stars. Two components of Castor A are each about twice the size of the Sun. Castor B's components are about 1.5 times the size of the Sun. Castor C's components, which are red dwarf stars, are smaller than our Sun. In addition to being spectroscopic, Castor C is an eclipsing binary as well. Castor is noted for being the first true physical binary star to be recognized as a binary star. And slide number 22. Pollux is actually slightly brighter than Castor, even though it's got the designation of Beta Genorum. It has been given the Beta designation. Not sure why. Alpha is usually the brightest. Burnham's Celestial Handbook notes that some theorize that one of the two stars in Gemini may have changed its brightness over the past few centuries. Pollux is a yellow star that is about 4 to 5 times larger than the Sun and is about 35 light years away. Pollux is one of the few naked-eye stars known to have an exoplanet orbiting around it, believed to have a mass of about 2.3 times that of Jupiter. Oh, so if you go outside, last time I looked, it was clear here, but we've got storms coming in. If you go outside and look up, you can see Pollux, and there's an exoplanet going around Pollux. So on slide number 22, Wazet. The name Wazet means middle. This is a star close to the middle of Gemini. The name also refers to the star's proximity to the ecliptic as well. This double is easier to split than Castor, with the two stars separated by 6.8 arcseconds. Remember, Castor's is only 2.2 arcseconds. The brighter star shines about magnitude 3.5. It's a whitish color star, owing to the fact that it's an F white star. F is a type on the, okay, that's on the HR diagram. We'll have to get into that, another Skynet in the future. We've done this before. The dimmer comparison shines at about 8.2 magnitude, and is a K-type yellow orange star. Interestingly, it appears to be a purple tint to it by some people. Historical note that the late Clyde Tombaugh discovered Pluto only a half degree from Delta Wazet Genorum in February of 1930. This is KF5, JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide number 23. M35 is the only Messier object in Gemini. M35 is an open star cluster. Remember, there are a couple of different kinds of star clusters, open and globular. Open ones are more recent ones, and they can have between a dozen stars up to about 1,000 stars. M35 is bright enough to detect with the naked eye from a dark sky site. Lower powers are best for observing it because it covers about a half a degree of the sky. By the way, half a degree of the sky is the same size as the angular size as the moon. And an 6 to 8 inch telescope or larger, it's needed to be appreciated for it, but can be enjoyed with smaller telescopes and even binoculars. I've looked at it with several binoculars. When observing M35, note that the number of stars in the cluster have different colors. Many are noted to have what look like a streaming or curving lines across M35. This effect is caused by a number of observers to compare M35 to a bursting sky rocket. In his Deep Sky Wonders column, the late Walter Scott Houston wrote that M35 was his favorite open star cluster. Slide number 24, please. NGC 2158 is an open cluster, only 22 arc minutes away from M35. With sufficient aperture, both clusters can easily be seen in low-powered field of view, though for many years NGC 2158 was relatively unknown, lost to the glory of its brighter and larger neighbor, while M35 is about 2,800 light years away. NGC 2158 is much further, about 16,000 light years away. NGC 2158 is much denser than M35, but its great distance renders it relatively dim in comparison, and it suffers a light-polluted skies. It's hard to see from inside the city. Burnham's Celestial Handbook, and Robert, in his Burnham's Celestial Handbook, Robert Burnham Jr. writes that it may have a transition case between a galactic open cluster and the globular clusters. Is it one or the other? And deep studies of NGC 2158's HR diagram and stellar population have supported the idea that it might be in between an open cluster and a globular cluster. Interesting. NGC 2392 is the Eskimo Nebula, a planetary nebula. That's the result of the death of a star, by the way, a visual challenge object for this month. In his book, The Caldwell Objects from Stephen J. O'Meara. He writes that the Eskimo Nebula appears so nearly stellar at low power that it would not be difficult to sweep past it while looking for a diffuse object, which adds to the challenge of finding this object. However, even though it is small, NGC 2392 is bright enough at magnitude 9.2 for many observers to note that it is easily seen or it appears bright, which might be why it's included in the Astronomical League Urban Club list. Dave Hutchinson writes, an 8-inch telescope or larger is the best, and it is a marvelous object to view in a 16-inch dial. Wonder who has one of those. Using high magnification and an O3 filter. With equipment like that, you are able to make out some of the structure that is noted in the photographs. The shape of the structure of NGC 2392 suggests that many a human face surrounded by a fur-lined parka, giving it a popular name of the Eskimo Nebula. With a bright celestial star highlighting the nose on the face, some see the face of a clown instead, while others see the face of a lion with a furry mane. Explicitly, Robert Burnham Jr. wrote to him, the whole nebulosity irresistibly suggests the classic and unforgettable features of the late comedian W.C. Fields. You know, maybe we should have one of his movies in Afterglow movie. I don't know. And this is KF5JHA. Slide number 26, please. There are more astronomical League observing program objects in the constellation of Gemini of the Twins. I've just given you a sampling of some of those. Astronomy League has over 70 different observing programs, most of which have about 100 objects. If you observe just 10 of those objects a month in each in an observing program, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pen in about a year. Slide number 27, and that is Miss Carolyn's constellation of the week, Gemini the Twins. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for the research and words on deep sky objects that I've used, borrowed, and usually stolen. I also, at times, use the website constellation-guide.com for information. Next week, we'll take a look at a different constellation, Opus, the Poop Deck. What? There was a ship in the sky? Okay, we'll talk about that next week. This is KF5JHA, back to our net control Tom, KE5ICX.
Good, thank you, Chaz. And Brenda, WB50ZO, run to the radio. You're next. Tell us about recent astronomical discoveries from KE5ICX.
WB50ZO, I am ready. How the habitability of exoplanets is influenced by their rocks. The conditions on Earth are ideal for life. Most places on our planet are neither too hot nor too cold and offer liquid water. These and other requirements for life, however, delicately depend on the right composition of the atmosphere. Too little or too much of certain gases, like carbon dioxide, and Earth could become a ball of ice or turn into a pressure cooker. When scientists look for potentially habitable planets, a key component is therefore their atmosphere. Sometimes that atmosphere is primitive and largely consists of the gases that were around when the planet formed, as is the case for Jupiter and Saturn. On terrestrial planets like Mars, Venus, or Earth, however, such primitive atmospheres are lost. Instead, their remaining atmospheres are strongly influenced by surface geochemistry. Processes like the weathering of rocks after the composition, the atmosphere, and thereby they alter the composition, the atmosphere, and thereby influence the habitability of the planet. How exactly this works, especially under conditions very different from those on Earth, is what a team of scientists led by Kostub Hakim of the Center for Space and Habitability at the University of Bern and the NCCR planets investigated. The results were published early today in the Planetary Science Journal. Conditions are decisive. We want to understand how the chemical reactions between the atmosphere and the surface of planets change the composition of the atmosphere. On Earth, this process, the weathering of silicate rocks assisted by water, helps to maintain a temperate climate over long periods of time, Hakim explains. When the concentration of CO2 increases, temperatures also rise because of its greenhouse effect. Higher temperatures lead to more intense rainfall. Silicate weathering rates increase, which in turn reduce the CO2 concentration and subsequently lower the temperature, says the researcher. However, it need not necessarily work the same way on other planets. Using computer simulations, the team tested how different conditions affect the weathering process. For example, they found that even in very arid climates, weathering could be more intense than on Earth if the chemical reactions occur sufficiently quickly. Rock types, too, influence the process and can lead to very different weathering rates, according to Hakim. The team also found that at temperatures of around 70 degrees centigrade, contrary to popular theory, silicate weathering rates can decrease with rising temperatures. This shows that for planets with very different conditions than on Earth, weathering could play very different roles, Hakim says. If astronomers find a habitable world, it will likely be in what they call the habitable zone. This zone is the area around a star where the dose of radiation would allow water to be liquid. In the solar system, this zone lies roughly between Mars and Venus. Geochemistry has a profound impact on the habitability of planets in the habitable zone, says co-author and professor of astronomy and planetary sciences at the University of Bern and member of NCCR Planets, Kevin Heng, points out. As the team's results indicate, increasing temperatures could reduce weathering and its balancing effect on other planets. What would potentially be a habitable world could turn out to be a hellish greenhouse instead. As Heng further explains, understanding geochemical processes under different conditions is not only important to estimate the potential for life, but also for its detection. And unless we have some idea of the results of geochemical processes under varying conditions, we will not be able to tell whether biosignatures, possible hints of life like the phosgene that was found on Venus last year, indeed come from biological activity, the researcher says. All right, that's from ScienceDaily.com. Back to that, WB5OZL.
Thank you, Miss Brenda. This is KE5ICX. I'm going to go ahead and take a final round of check-ins. If you'd like to join us this evening, please come now with your call sign name, where you are transmitting from.
We'll stay.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Usually get a few stragglers towards the end. All right. Well, we got 3 minutes. Let me see what I can do here to close this out. Satellite launches. Let me do that one. We've got one coming up. Let's see. Oops. Let's see. 13. Looks like there didn't update. Tomorrow, with the Starlink V1.0L21 launching from Launch Complex 39A from Kennedy Space Center. This will be the 22nd batch of approximately 60 satellites of the Starlink broadband network, mission designated L21. March 20th, the Soyuz CES-500 mission from Baikonur Cosmodrome. Rocket will launch a rideshare mission by GK Launch Services. Payloads on this mission include the CES-500, one Earth observation satellite for Korea Aerospace Research Institute. Also the ELSA-D active debris removal demonstration mission. Also in March, let's see, the L-22 mission is expected. No date for that one. Same thing, 23rd batch of 60 satellites. On March 25th, we have Soyuz OneWeb 5 launch. This is from Vostochny Cosmodrome in Russia. That's the new space port. Russian Soyuz rocket will launch 36 satellites into orbit for OneWeb, which is developing a constellation, hundreds of satellites into low Earth orbit for low-latency broadband communications. This is on a Soyuz 21B rocket. We'll use the Fregat upper stage. That's pretty much the standards for that. So I think I'm going to close it down now. I want to thank everybody who checked in. We had 34 hams participating on the air tonight. Thanks to all who checked in this evening. I hope you join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC nets. If you'd like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls or send an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussion about this net, astronomy in general on Facebook and Twitter, as well as our audio-video streams, video archives, and other useful Internet resources. Yep, we've been around for a while. Go to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. Until next Saturday night, this is Kilo Echo 5, India, Charlie, X-Ray, Tom, and I'll be closing the net at 22:30 local time and returning the repeater to local, normal, amateur use. 7-3, everybody, and enjoy discovering the universe. We'll be back in 5 minutes for the Afterglow Movie Net, Project Moonbase from 1953. Come back then. Thank you, everyone. I'm clear.
Alpha 5, Papa Charlie Romeo. I'm confused. Am I doing the Afterglow net? I haven't gotten any kind of confirmation.
Yes, you're doing the net if you want. I don't know. Something seems to be up with the email, but if you're ready, willing, and able, you have it this evening.
Okay, we'll fly by the seat of our pants then. I don't have a description, a boilerplate or anything, so we'll need some help. But yeah, I don't mind trying my hand at it in about 3 or so minutes.
Hey, Larry. Yeah, I did send you some information. I'm not quite sure what's happening, but yeah, I sent it to wa5pcr@lark@.com. Is that correct?
Yeah, yes, that's correct. My email provider, I've noticed I've gotten a few bounced emails. So perhaps maybe you can try it again, or better yet, try lost in my space at Yahoo.
Go ahead and check that email. You'll find basically the instructions for the net. It's there as we speak, KE5I6.
Right, I guess that's long enough for break time. This is Larry, WA5 PCR, Whiskey Alpha 5, Papa Charlie Romeo. I will be doing the net, the Afterglow movie net tonight. I'm your net control operator, or net control station. And I have a basic outline of the net. This will be my first time to not do a net. I've done plenty of nets, but this is the first time for me to use NetLogger. So be nice and give me a little bit of time during check-ins to write your call sign down. So, with Afterglow Movie Net starting, we first need a round of check-ins. Who's going to be checking into the Afterglow Movie Net? Let's have your call signs only, slowly and phonetically.
Echo 5, India, Charlie, X-ray.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo, Bill and Irving.
For Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony in Dallas, and yes, I saw the movie.
Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima. This is Brenda, and I saw the movie.
As far as seeing the movie, we'll get into that once we get to the check-ins. That's what we'll start with. The very first station, I messed up on your call sign. You logged in before John Byram, November 5, Bravo, Bravo. Can I have your complete call sign, please?
My call sign is November 5, Bravo, Bravo. That's the complete sign. And I go by Bill in Irving, N5BB.
Who checked in before Bill?
And that would be me. I'm Kilo Echo 5, India, Charlie, X-ray, Tom in Louisville.
All right, let's see if we can get some more check-ins. This is the Afterglow Movie Net. The net control operator is WA5 PCR. Let's see if we can get a couple more check-ins to start.
This is Alpha Delta 5 Sierra Echo, Chuck Richardson, short time, have not seen the movie, just checking in for the head count. Alpha Delta 5 Sierra Echo.
All right, we'll close out this session of check-ins momentarily. And
Robert or Bob, Alpha Fox 5 Charlie Echo. I believe I got your call sign correct. Correct me if I didn't. But you already said your short time, so let's, you said you did not see the movie. What did you think of the movie? What did you think of, you haven't seen the movie, so what do you think of the net and the movies in general?
Larry, who are you contacting? I'm sorry, I missed it. I thought you were talking to Bill. This is KE5ICX.
Trying to get these call signs into NetLogger. I think I got most of them. The last check-in was a short timer. I believe his call sign was Alpha Fox 5 Charlie Echo. I believe his name is Robert or Bob. It sounds like I've munched up the call sign so badly no one recognizes it. All right, we'll try again. Whoever checked in as short time, please check in again.
This is Alpha Delta 5 Sierra Echo Chuck Richardson. Short time, did not see the movie, just checking in for the head count. That's it. Back to net.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I munched up the call sign so badly no one recognizes them. Okay, I'm trying. You haven't seen the net. You're here for the head count. I understand. You've been checked in. All right. Let's go to Kilo Echo 5 Charlie X-ray. I think that's a bill. I'm not sure. We're trying here, okay? This is the first time for NetLogger, and I'm trying to not munch up so badly. But Bill, what did you think of the movie?
Larry, it's okay. Everybody, you're working with a new program. My call is Kilo Echo 5 India Charlie X-ray. There's a little extra letter in there. I'm special. I get extra letters, see. And my name is Tom, and I'm in Louisville. And I did see the movie, Project Moonbase. And I think we watched this movie probably about 5 or 6 years ago. I kind of recognized it, mainly because the crazy costumes and the one scene that was where they walk in and talk to one another, and they're sitting. They walk in the door and they're sideways. So one group is on the wall and the other group is sitting on the quote floor of the rotating space station. It's a Robert Heinlein story, which seems like it'd be really good, and there are some aspects to it that I really do like. The use of different spacecraft, the use of the space station, and then switching over to another spacecraft. Well, heck, they did that in 2001: A Space Odyssey, practically duplicating the scene. So it does have some validity to it. Robert Heinlein was a wonderful writer of science fiction back in the 50s. So you would think that the story would be great. Destination Moon was the story that he worked on for the screenplay for that motion picture, and that's a fine film. This one, not so much. It had some problems, I think. The idea of going to the moon is perfectly fine, and at the time nobody knew they were going to be doing that. But the whole idea of a saboteur, and the guy is obviously so over the top that who wouldn't? That would be the first guy I would go after is Werner. He seemed like most likely the guy. And of course, at that time, nobody had any photo IDs of anything. You can get on board a spacecraft without any sort of information or ID or anything. You just climb on board. It's perfectly fine.
Okay, thank you. I agree. Heinlein is one of the best sci-fi writers that I personally have come across. Let's hear from November Tango 5, Tango Mike. Does anyone recognize that call sign?
Moon and everybody acting crazy and that. Pretty typical dumb astronauts. I was a little bit disappointed in how the whole thing played out. And then there's a whole section in allthetropes.org about this movie having to do with all of the things that you've seen or have seen or will see in any science fiction movie of this type. Even many movies from the 1950s. Communists, weird angles, artificial gravity and making it look like it's really something. The perfectly arranged marriage. Bright Eyes decides that she's going to marry. Okay. Plenty of other things, I think, along the way. I don't know. I did think I'm looking through the notes here. Evil kidnapping communist bellhops. Now that was pretty good. Called Room to Service. That was good. Where they go and they kidnap him, and assume the identity and infiltrate the spacecraft. That's pretty good. I like that. Using the name Bright Eyes as the colonel, the female colonel in this, that was pretty bad and very kind of sexist, but what do you do? And then Dr. Bellows threatening to spank Colonel Bright Eyes was cringeworthy. I think even back then it would have been cringeworthy, but who's to say? And then, of course, the movie takes place in the 1970s, which meant we were only a year off from regarding the moon landing, so not too bad, I guess, in that way. All right, I'm going to stop now. I'm sure there's plenty of things in this movie to beat up, but in any case, I did watch the Mystery Science Theater 3000 version. It was a very early first season episode, by the way, so they hadn't quite worked everything out, but it was still fun. Back to net control. This is KE5ICS.
I'm so sorry, Tom. I doubled over a little bit of what you were saying. Or you doubled. Or what? I doubled. Okay. I'm trying to make this as painless as possible, but I'm learning net longer as we speak. So, let's see. Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima. Tell us if you saw the movie and what did you think of the movie in general.
So this is Steady B50ZL. Yes, I saw the movie. I don't recall that I'd ever seen it before, so this was new. Robert Heinlein is my favorite author of all time, but I do recognize a lot of his stuff is really dated. And the sexist themes in this were just cringeworthy. But it was 1953. I believe he thought he was very forward-looking by having women as main characters and as pilots and doing jobs that men normally do, which was kind of unusual in the 40s and 50s. And this is one of those, oh, look, it's a woman pilot, wow. And she's a colonel, wow. And then these incredibly degrading comments. Just, you just hunker down waiting to be hit over the head again with them. So much wrong with this movie. I'm really trying to find something good about it, If I had been a kid in 1953, I probably would have thought this was pretty good. Spaceships, astronauts, moon, all the things that we want to do. We want to go to the moon, and that would certainly spark your imagination. So I didn't see a lot of real glaring technical issues, although if I thought about it, I could probably see some. I thought the rocket ship was a little bit hokey, and I don't know. I think the story was too formulaic for me. It's like, oh, we're going to go to the moon. Well, then conflict happens and betrayal, and I'm sorry they all wore a handgun on their uniforms. It's so dumb. Who takes a gun onto a spaceship? So, anyway, all right, I have more things to say later. WB follows it out.
Hey, let's hear from, thank you, Brenda, for that synopsis. I kind of agree that, guns on a spaceship is probably not one of the better ideas. I thought it was strange that everyone wore shorts. That was their official uniform, so to speak. I just thought that was strange. All right, I believe this is Bill, November 5, Bravo, Bravo. I did skip over you, but the order is all mixed up here in NetLogger, so I'm learning. Let's hear from Bill, November 5, Bravo, Bravo. What's your summary? Did you see the movie, and what's your summary?
Much, Larry. This is N5BB, and the confusing thing is the automatic lookup calls me John, but I go by my nickname, which is William for my middle name, so I go by Bill. So sorry about that. And I will defer to Brenda any day. She can always go ahead of me, anytime. She doesn't even have to ask. Okay, now, what did I think of it? Well, I've got a lot of notes, so I'm only going to talk about some of these things now. Yes, I did see the movie. And one thing to remember, this is a really early science fiction moon movie, space movie like this. It's 1953. And, they were still messing around with V2s, and this was pretty early in any kind of rocketry or anything. So it was a pretty cheap movie, too. As I understand it, it was originally, Heinlein had worked with some people to make a serial on TV. So there were, back in that same time frame, there were cowboy serials. These originally came from movies. So they were shorts that were played on movie theaters. And movie theaters that time played a lot of shorter things between the bigger movies. And so they had a lot of these little shorts they would play in there. And they moved those over to television. So they would have these little TV serials. And so they were going to have a science fiction serial. So you'd have something for, I don't know, probably no more than half an hour, including advertisements. And then stay tuned next week to see if the heroine, doesn't get hurt by the space monster or something. They would continue that way. And evidently they took some of the footage that was shot for that and decided instead to release it as a movie. And Tom You said you kind of recognized it. I think the reason is it was very similar to the Cat Women of the Moon. Remember Cat Women of the Moon? They use some of the same costumes and spacecraft and other stuff. So I think that's what's confusing you. The two movies released one day apart, but they were actually released by different distribution companies. So I think that was the confusing part. Anyway, this is N5BB. Getting back to the movie. Things about it. Well, it's interesting. They called it USSF Spacecom. Or SPACOM. Sounds like United States Space Force. Does that seem familiar in 2021? Interesting. Of course, it was supposed to occur in 1970, and that was 17 years in the future, and they were guessing. And so many things changed between I was born in 1953, and I got my amateur radio license in 1969. So a lot of things changed between 1953 and 1969. So I can imagine they got a lot of things wrong. But actually, I thought that the spacecraft, the space suits, the space station, even the special effects were okay for a low-cost, movie in 1953. This wasn't Gone with the Wind. So I was, in general, I was kind of interested in the movie. It wasn't a great movie, but it wasn't a stinker either, I don't believe. The actress on it, Donna Martell, is still alive. She's 93 years old, and she was like 26 years old when she filmed this in 1953. She's 1 year younger than my mom was. And so she had a long history doing other things, but this is one of her earlier things. And she was a really sexy actress, and so that's why they picked her, obviously. I would vote for her being the sexiest astronaut lady that we have seen so far. This is N5BB. I agree, it was very sexist. Early in it, the general called her bright eyes, and she was offended by that. But later in the movie, she wasn't offended by it. Everybody just called her bright eyes. They didn't bother calling her Colonel and nobody knows what her first name was. So I was a little offended by that, but it was 1953. And again, when the general said, "I'll slap you on your butt or I'll spank you," talk about sexist. If he was the governor of New York, he might not make it through the weekend. Anyway, I agree that the shorts were very interesting. Not completely unheard of for the early 50s, but to have them in a movie like this was rather unusual. I think that was a Robert Heinlein thing, if I remember correctly. I think he had his characters in space wearing shorts or something. Some other interesting things, I really liked in the space station their little basic special effects of having people walk on the ceiling, and then they sat on the side of the room because they had their magnetic boots on. And I thought that worked, at least for a movie of that time. And did you notice when they're walking down the corridor, it said on the side of the corridor there was a sign, "Please do not walk on the walls." I thought that was fantastic. Anyway, I got much more to talk about later. N5BBA. Go ahead.
I think that the movie for 1953 was really pushing a lot of boundaries, science-wise, sexist-wise. As far as science goes, the basic idea, I think they got, I think they nailed several things. It'd be a lot easier to go to the moon if you have a space station, okay, orbiting the Earth. That's a viable idea. If you have communications, and communications are sometimes blocked by mountains. They had that spot on. And as far as Bright Eyes, yeah, she was easy on the eyes. I think that the movie pushed, for 53, they definitely pushed several boundaries there. Boundaries that have opened up and then closed again now that we're in 2021. So we're going to go with our next person. I believe, I think he goes by Tony. Let's see if someone recognizes November Tango 5 Tango Mike. Does anyone recognize that call sign or a piece of it?
I do. This is Tony, NT5TM. Let me know if you want me to go ahead.
As before, sir, I got somebody right. Okay, we're getting better. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. I will admit that yes, she was pretty, although I do want to make fun of those shorts on everybody. That was the one thing in this movie that they were equal about. Everyone had to wear embarrassing shorts. Male, female, old, young, it doesn't matter. They all had to wear embarrassing shorts. In terms of the science part of science fiction, the plot of this movie was not nearly as good as the 1950 Heinlein movie, Destination Moon, which we also discussed on a previous net, in which, was a little bit wooden and not as engaging perhaps as it could have been, but at least really did hit all the science-y notes that they knew about in 1950. And even very realistically predicted the way that the astronauts in the lunar module would have to push everything they possibly could out the airlock to lighten their vehicle because the weight margin on that was so tiny. So yeah, I don't have a lot to add. The thought of a 4-star general spanking a colonel was really ridiculous. I don't know what happens if you spank a colonel, but I think the word jail probably comes in there somewhere. I'm not going to try it. I think this was really more like Wedding in Space than Destination Moon, and I was having fond memories of Destination Moon while watching this. November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
We've gone through our check-ins. I want to ask if is anyone waiting to check into the net, if you have any additional check-ins. We do have a little bit more to discuss about the movie. So let's see if we can get a few more check-ins. I'm kind of slow today, so let's just work on call signs. Slowly and phonetically, please. Let's have call signs for anyone checking into the Afterglow movie. Your net control operator is Larry, WA5 PCR. Let's have those check-ins now. hearing nothing, we're going to go on to our next subject. That's going to be, what was your favorite? My favorite character was actually the 4-star general back on the Earth. I thought he was level-headed. He was, as far as the wedding on the moon, he was thinking that, we can't have this immoral situation on the moon. We've got to handle it somehow. So the idea was, let's get them married. That way, they're the first couple on the moon. Turn it into a positive. Okay. Well, let's have. I'm going to go through the check-ins, and let's have your favorite character of the movie and why that particular character was your, not just was your favorite, but what about them made them greater in your eyes than the rest of the characters? All right, let's go with Kilo Echo 5, India, Charlie X-Ray, Tom.
Thanks, Larry. Boy, that's a hard one to figure out. I'm always going to kind of have a soft spot for Hayden Rourke. General Pappy Green, of course, was Dr. Bellows in I Dream of Jeannie. He plays himself in everything he's ever done. I've seen him in a few things through the years, but he's still an interesting character. I thought that was quite fun. Donna Martell as Colonel Bright Eyes, she was all right. I mean, there wasn't anything wrong with what she did. I think she was given, a role that, in movies you didn't have. How do you describe it? Movies back then were very sexist, and some of them still are today, but it's far less, thankfully. But I think she did an admirable job going through all of this, even though she was colonel. It's a joke. Not much of one, by the way. Which I thought was kind of interesting. But here's something that I thought was really cool, though, and I like this. At the very end of the movie, we had, her name was Ernestine Verrier, and she played the Madam President at the end, a surprise. There you go. You've got a president in 1970, no less. Female president, which I thought was great. That was a nice suggestion moving forward, and would have been, and it was probably considered preposterous then, and people were laughing the fact that might happen, but it did. I think that's great. I think that was a wonderful way of portraying it, and I almost saved the movie when it was all said and done, is that it is the future. Why not allow that to happen? But yeah, Hayden Rourke, I thought was pretty interesting. He's always a fun character in his many episodes of I Dream of Jeannie, and he pretty much played the same character in that. A little more stern, but not bad. So he's my favorite character, and in the order of what I just said about some of the other folks, I thought they did pretty well overall. They got to get rid of those shorts. That's all there is to it. Back to net control. KE5ICX.
I'm with you on the short thing. I thought it was an excellent idea for a woman president as well. I thought it was, well, like I said before, it was made in '53, and they pushed so many boundaries in the making of the movie. It was definitely low budget, but the ideas that were in the movie were pretty far in the future. You know, who knew in '53 that we'd be landing on the moon in '69? You know, they were off by only 1 year. I think it was, you know, pretty good as far as
as pushing boundaries. All right, let's hear from November 5, Bill. Let's hear from Bill. What's your favorite character and why?
This is November 5. Bravo, bravo. My favorite character, I'm going to be a little contrarian. I'm going to say it was the evil Mr. Roundtree. Ooh, he was prototype evil. He had this kind of mild face, not much emotion. He looked dangerous if you just glanced at him. He's just an average bloke. But man, he gets on the phone and he directs all kinds of things. And then when he gets to the hotel, he takes out some kind of blunt object and he bangs the real Dr. Werner over the head. I thought he was going to kill him, but evidently he just knocked him out. And he was going to get the other guy to go and essentially commit suicide, ramming the spacecraft into the space station. I mean, he was evil, and I think he played it straight. He just calmly was evil. Oh, that's all I have to say about that. It's Habibi.
Considered him, he's the Dr. Smith of Lost in Space, so to speak. But I considered him as being, the evil. But when he's given a chance to do good, he says, well, they made me do bad stuff. I'll go ahead and help you carry that transmitter over to the mountaintop. And then he slips and falls and dies. And I kind of felt something for him that, he gave his life trying to do good, So that's why I couldn't count him as completely evil. All right, let's hear from Tony. November, Tango 5, Tango Mike. What's your favorite character and why?
Before Tony starts, this is inside the air check. No, you misunderstood, Larry. I wasn't talking about the fake Dr. Werner. I was talking about the evil director, Mr. Roundtree, the guy back in the office that caused all of this to happen. He was the head secret agent. Okay, inside BB.
Okay, yes, you're right. I misunderstood. Yeah, the guy that had the desk directing all this activity. Yeah, I understand now. Yeah. Okay. You're right. He was the personification of evil, getting all these players in the right places to effect his dastardly deeds. And I don't think there was a limit to his evilness. He would say something. I forget exactly what. He would say something, and you think, well, that's evil. And then he would top it, with saying something else, and just top it again. And it's like, yes, this guy is the personification of evil. Okay. Yes, right. I was confusing him with the fake Warner. Okay, I'm sorry. Let's go ahead and hear from Tony. Your favorite character and why?
Oh, that's a tough one. The villain had the most amazingly giant intercom on his desk. I mean, there must have been 20 vacuum tubes in that thing. But the intercom didn't do much and didn't seem to be autonomous, so I can't make that a character. Boy, I don't know. Every time they said Bright Eyes, I thought of Charlton Heston from Planet of the Apes, because, well, that's what I think of if you say Bright Eyes. November Tango 5, Tango Mike with nothing to add.
Isn't her name, didn't they, other than Bright Eyes, I'm thinking of the woman, okay, yeah, they were calling him Bright Eyes, that's right, okay, and they were calling his girlfriend Nova, okay, I got it. Yeah, it's hard to think of, once you've seen a movie that you're really drawn to, other movies, you're always comparing them to the other movie. You're comparing movies with Planet of the Apes, and I do that myself. What is the interesting paws off me or something like that? Yeah, okay. Let's go to Brenda. And I've got an ID. Whiskey Alpha 5, Papa Charlie Romeo. This is Larry doing the Afterglow Movie Net. Let's hear from Brenda. Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima. You've got 4, Brenda.
Thank you, WB50ZL. I'm going to say my favorite character was Polly Prattles, just because she was so over the top with that glittery dress and acting so ridiculous. She was kind of funny. Colonel Bright Eyes did not have a first name. It's in the credits. They mentioned that in the article on Wikipedia about her, and that's not a real name. I looked it up. Nobody's named that. They just made this up so that they could call her Bright Eyes, which is, awful. The shorts I thought were just awful, and I think the reason why they're wearing shorts is because they couldn't make them nude. Robert Heinlein at that time was a practicing nudist, and if you read his later stuff in the 60s and 70s, 80s, his characters are always taking their clothes off all the time. And but that wouldn't have passed in 1953 by any means. So they put shorts on these people, which were the clothing was really unattractive. The T-shirts too were too small and stretched, and they looked horrible, in my opinion. Spacesuits were okay. They weren't too bad. They reminded me a little bit of the spacesuits in Destination Moon. But the characters on the whole weren't too bad. So many of these movies you can't tell the people apart because they're just like cookie cutters. But at least in this one there was some more variety in the characterization. All right, back to that, WB50ZL.
Thank you, Brenda. I do want to remind everyone about the Facebook page. You can go to Facebook, and up in the upper left-hand corner, there's a search area. You can put in Afterglow, one word, and then movies, and do a search, and one of the entries that you're given will be the Afterglow movie page, or group, the Afterglow movie group. So check them out, and there will be the movies for next week and week after are usually there, so you can go ahead and watch them early if you like. All right, I would like to bring up KE5ICK, Tom. Tom, can you? I've got your instructions here, but I wonder if you have any other words of wisdom for me, the net control, to continue.
Yeah, Larry, a couple of things. Let's see here. Some of the things we do a couple more rounds. Sometimes we talk about the special effects or music, or in this case, it is a Robert Heinlein story. So I don't know. Maybe there's something there with fans on that. Echolink also has. I see Billy on there. KF5PDS. She usually comes late into the net. She's over on Echolink, but I'm trying to keep an eye out for her right now, see if she's there. It's Saturday night. She usually comes in a little bit later than everyone else, but she usually has some pretty good comments about it, and I know she saw it on Friday. Let's see, what else? I don't know. You can throw it open to open comments, anything that anybody would like to talk about, that sort of thing, or additional check-ins possibly. It being as it is a late net, people come and go a lot of times, and it's kind of surprising who just pops in there from the middle of nowhere. So it's kind of a bit informal at this point, whatever you would like to do. Those are just some suggestions based on what other nets have done. Really up to you. KE5ICX.
That's kind of what I was looking for. Am I messing up so badly the teacher has to talk to me? All right, that's good. What I'd like to do is have a round where we're talking about special effects. I thought that the ship docking with the space station was ridiculous. I think that could have been done a lot better. If they got a few other things pretty close, why couldn't they have done the docking better? So let's go with Tom, KE5ICK, since he's the first one on my list. And what do you think of the special effects?
And it's KE5ICX X-ray. That's okay. I've been called worse. Let's see. I didn't mind it so much. What I thought, I mentioned this early on my first go-around on this, is that it's amazing to think that there's a very close similarity, at least with the mechanics of the thing, how this all went with 2001: A Space Odyssey, almost as though it was planned that way. You go up in one spaceship, right? You go to the space station, you talk to the Russians, well, you have one Russian, or something, whatever that guy was, and then you head out in another spacecraft that was completely different, with landing legs and everything. That happened in 2001. Now, yeah, I know it's a little bit of a stretch, but at the same time, having that idea, and having the Navy artificial gravity, I think the magnetic boots was part of that, and the space station there, it was pretty much decided that if we did go to the moon, we'd have to build the space station first, and then you could taxi back and forth between the moon and Earth via Earth orbit. And while I still think it's a viable idea, we haven't done it because we just haven't done it, even though we've had a space station in continuous operation now for 20 years, which is kind of surprising. That old to even think that even happened. But still, I think that the idea of it was quite good. The mechanics of the station itself was terrible. I don't know what a flying frisbee is supposed to do, but that was definitely not what you wanted. Something where you have a wheel, which I think Destination Moon had, made more sense. So while it looked kind of cool, and you got to see the thing on Dr. Bellows, I mean the desk of our general, whatever he was okay. The docking thing, okay. It was okay, but if this thing is rotating for gravity, you're going to find it very difficult to dock those spacecraft. Another thing, too, is, and what was ridiculous, is as the spacecraft got closer, it was like a scene out of an old cartoon. The spaceship's far away, it goes from left to right, then it goes from right to left, it's a little closer, then it goes from left to right, and it's even closer still, and then finally they switch and say where they're going to dock. I thought, boy, that's really silly. Station and all the equipment, I mean, everything weighs a zillion pounds. They got lots of room in the spacecraft to move around, and the space station has 12-foot floor-to-ceiling bulkheads and all of that. It just doesn't match. I think one of the things that people get wrong in these movies, and I guess I understand why, but is that anytime you think of a spaceship or anything where you have to have an environment, the environment, in order to keep the cost down and the weight down and all of that, you make it smaller than it should be. Everything shouldn't be huge bowling alley size, and so many of these movies, particularly from the 50s, but they did it in all the different eras of science fiction movies. They make these things so gigantic that you go, oh my gosh, how the heck can they possibly support something like that? Well, they can't. It just isn't possible. But then I was reading about Star Trek, the motion picture, and the fact that, the models and everything, I'll make that a separate thing, I guess. But the point is that you can't get the cameras in there. If things are too small, you can't move a 35 millimeter camera in close on your actors. Your field of view is very limited. And I will go back to the Star Trek motion picture. They had a hell of a time photographing in a completely enclosed bridge. It was very difficult to do. They also had problems with the model because it was too small and getting close-in shots. They needed a periscope lens and all that. So maybe Hollywood needs those big sets in order to make the kind of shots, angles, and everything that you need to do. It's not realistic, but then neither are spaceships with lots and lots of gravity floating in free space. So I guess those are my comments on that. KE5ICX.
Hey, Tom. The scene where they're walking on the ceiling and then come into the general's office and they're sitting on the side, I thought that was neat. I did not see any wires holding them up, so they were able to hide those sufficiently well that, the casual observer never saw them. Now, I think it was not smart for them to go ahead and walk all the way around until they're on the same panel as the general. How do you know what's a floor with no gravity? Well, be on the same surface as the general. I think that would have carried the scene a little bit better. All right, we have, let's talk to, we talked to Bill. Let's go to, let's see here. I don't think we've heard from Tony about special effects. Let's see. In November Tango 5 Tango Mike, Tony, what are your words about special effects?
Sure. I do want to acknowledge one of Brenda's comments earlier that, yes, although I am kind of hard on movies that aren't very good, we really could tell all the characters apart easily. At first glance, they behave differently, they look differently, they sounded differently. And that's not something you can take for granted in many of these Afterglow movies. So at least they did establish different characters. As far as special effects themselves, really most of them looked awfully inexpensive. Their models were just plainly too small. They were photographed from too close. Everything just looked small. Yeah, except for the interiors, which, as Tom pointed out, maybe had to be big to accommodate cameras, but they were all too large. It's getting late. It's time for me to think about getting ready for bed. But thank you for including me in the net, and thank you and congratulations on your first Afterglow movie net. It is very hard to be net control at this time of night. Your tongue just wants to blubber because you've been up all day and now it's late. So thank you, and I thought the special effects were cheap, but you know, the movie could have been worse. November Tango 5, Tango Mike. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. And yeah, it's getting a little late. We have just a couple things to do here. Let's see. I wonder if, let's see, I'm looking at the notes okay. Let's have one more round, and it's kind of a free-for-all. Just talk about the movie. What do you think? You know, about the movie, about Heinlein. We just want to hear from you in regards to the movie. And we'll go with the first in line, Tom. I believe it's Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie Kilo. Correct me if I'm wrong. Nope, I'm wrong. Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-ray. Let's see if that one's right.
This is KE5ICX. I'm going to give this one a passing grade for the movie. I think that I know some of the sources actually from I was looking at the internet and finding out kind of the inside dope on this movie, and a lot of the special effects in that actually came from a television series that was never produced, I guess. Ring Around the Moon. I Googled it. I can't find anything on it, so I just have to take the wiki at its face value. But one of the things I thought that was really good about the film is they tried to depict the moon in some sort of authentic way, at least what we thought it looked like, and that is basically what you saw through a telescope, only in a very close-in surface way. When we finally got to the moon, it didn't look like that. Even 2001: A Space Odyssey did not get it right. The moon itself had not quite such a dramatic surface, but more smooth, but with pockled by lots and lots of craters and a few boulders here and there. They never ventured anywhere where there were jagged mountains, yet in every one of these films there's always a jagged mountain. But that being said, it's okay, because I like the idea that it's got to be totally alien. It's got to be completely different from Earth. We have no atmosphere, so it's dark all the time with a lighted surface. You do have stark shadows, and there's always this feel of desolation that's there, and I think they captured that very well. The size of the spacecraft, that was okay. I didn't mind that at all. Yes, the models are too small, producing sort of this look that is modelish. But then I saw today, I was looking, and they had Armageddon, and they showed the size of their space shuttle model. The space shuttle model was the size of a car. So when they showed it, and I'm not kidding, it was the size of a car. This is a scale model. So they were able to do close-in shots, and it looked very authentic. So to do special effects in the model back then and today when it is used, you have to go big. L.B. Abbott did that in all of his work. His stuff looked very authentic because his model sizes were gigantic and expensive and lumbering and difficult to maneuver. So when you're working with a budget and trying to figure it all out, you got to find somebody who does good work. And I think overall it was good work with what they did with the special effects, with the models and the special effects that went along with it. So I'm going to give them a B for 1953 when it came to special effects. giving Destination Moon probably an A for back then. I think that's a pretty good grade. So what I got for that, I do want to mention that I do have a change in movies for next week, but I'll reserve. I reserve the rest of my time. Back to net control. This is KE5ICX.
Thank you, Tom. We got about 99% of what you were saying there. There was part of your transmission where you were not able to hold the repeater. I don't know. I have no idea what would be causing it, because otherwise you're solid into the repeater. You know, maybe there was a plane going overhead or something. I really don't know. But like I said, we got 99% of what you said. Just to let you know, give you some feedback. There was about 10 seconds there where you were in and out of the repeater. All right, we're going to go with Tony, November Tango 5 Tango Mike. And before we do, we're going to say this is WA5 PCR Larry, running the Afterglow movie net. So Tony, tell us your thoughts. We've already had a summary of the movie. What do you have left to speak about? It could be the movie, it could be the Heinlein, it could be sci-fi in general with respect to the movie. Let's hear from you.
Really have run out of things to say. Thank you again, and I'm just looking forward to hearing what the next movie is, NT5TM.
All right, we're going to go with Brenda. Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima. Same thing. Any parting thoughts on the movie, Heinlein, sci-fi in regards to the movie? What do you got?
This is WV5OZL. I'm going to back up to special effects because I didn't get to say anything. This movie suffers from what almost every B movie in that era did. So let's find something with some flashy lights and it'll look all spacey and science-y. And they did have a panel that just had random blinking lights. You know, they don't seem to do anything, but for some reason they think that this is believable spaceship equipment. And one of the things looked like an elevator, a bunch of elevator buttons. So, but this movie was made in 10 days. And I don't know what their budget was. I couldn't find out, but I'm sure it was pretty low. So, you know, you kind of have to feel sorry for them. Still, you don't have to spend much money on special effects if you're real creative. I went to sci-fi convention once, and the guy that worked on special effects for original Star Trek opened his briefcase, and he pulled out a little stick, and it had a foil pom-pom on it, and he wiggled it, and he says, this was the transporter. So it's not so much what you have, it's what you do with it. Obviously, he was brilliant in special effects, but they just didn't have the time or money to do much with this. So let's just find some blinky lights and do that. On the whole, I give it a passing grade for the time. I don't think it was a neglected movie like so many are. So let's just get this over with. I think they put some heart into it. It suffered from being in the 50s where most things were pretty bad. But, yeah, you know, I would watch it again. I actually would. Okay, back to that. WB5OZL.
Thank you, Brenda. I think we've pretty much explored this movie about every which way we can. I think most people are giving it a passing made. It's, you know, some of the models, special effects are key. I thought that the ideas presented in the movie were excellent. You know, a woman president being on the moon in 1970, that kind of thing. But Tom, if you don't have anything else, I'm going to start closing out the net.
I do have the movie for next week. There's been a program change.
Did you want to announce that over the air, or you reserve, do you want people to check it out later in the week?
No, I'll be happy to give it right now. I usually do at the end of the net, so let me get the info on it here real quick. I know what the name of the movie is, but I got a couple particulars.
So talk about special effects.
G5HJ.
Okay, this is net control. Okay, I thought you had checked out, Bill. That's why I bypassed you on that. But since you're here and you want to discuss special effects, please do so. You have the floor, Bill.
Thanks. And you had another station wanting to check in.
Let's go ahead and do a round of check-ins. It's going to be, the rest of the net's going to be rather short, but is there anyone else that wants to check into the Afterglow net? Let's have your call sign only, and slowly and phonetically.
Kilo, Golf, 5, Alpha, Hotel, Juliet.
November 5, Sierra, Quebec, Alpha.
We've got 2 more check-ins. Is there anyone else who wants to check into the Afterglow movie net? Let's have your call signs only, phonetically and slowly, please. Okay, I think I need a correction. The last person to check in, what I have for a call sign is November 5, Sierra, Quebec, Alpha. Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Correction required, Larry. N5SQA.
I asked because NetLogger did not pull your information in from QRZ. So can I get your name and your location, your city?
Ron in beautiful downtown Dallas.
Okay, Frank, Kilo, let's see here, Kilo Golf 5, Alpha Hotel Juliet. let's have, did you see the movie, and what was your favorite character?
This is just some feedback on tonight's net. I've been listening to about 45 minutes worth, and not once I heard what movie y'all were talking about. Plus, it took about that long to get another check-in, so I could go ahead and jump in and try to chime in. But I usually enjoy listening and chiming into this net when I'm driving around this late at night on Saturdays. So that's just my 2 cents on tonight's net. After that, Ron, how did you get your information to disappear out of QRZ? I'd like to know that magic trick. But as soon as the next movie is announced, I probably will go ahead and watch it so I can chime in on next week's show. This is a KG5AHJ.
Feedback, or positive feedback, is always appreciated. Thank you, Frank, for the feedback. The movie is Project Moonbase, and there have been several opportunities to check in. I'm sorry that they may not have lined up with when you were available to check in. We did have some lengthy times between check-in rounds. I'm assuming you did not see the movie, so of course you can't talk about characters or special effects or anything. Okay. Let's see, Ron, November 5, Sierra, Quebec, Alpha. Did you see the movie? And if you did, what do you think about it?
No, as usual, I have not seen the movie. N5SQA.
Okay. It's understandable that some people are confused or not, I can't think of the word. I've done plenty of nets. This is the first time I've ever used NetLogger, and it is throwing me for a loop. I have finally gotten to the point of actually being able to enter call signs and have the information get filled in from QRZ. The order, however, baffles me. All right, let's go back to, let me see here. Let me have a call sign, just a call sign, of anyone who wants to talk more about the movie or feel that they have not been able to talk about some portion of the movie.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo.
Okay, Bill, I apologize for missing you on a round or two. Let's hear from you. You have the floor, and let's hear what you have to say. But before you do, I need to say this is WA5 PCR Larry running the Afterglow Movie Net. All right, Bill, the floor is yours.
Hey, thank you, Larry. This is N5BB. I want to talk a little bit about special effects. So did you notice early in the movie when they're on the Earth, when the general was talking on the telephone? This is a really neat special effect. It had no phone cord. It had an antenna, which was a little, it was a metal tube with a circular metal ring on top. And there was a similar antenna on top of the base phone. They were simulating the first cordless telephones in 1953. And, in about 1970, those kind of things are starting to come out, and they were pretty clunky. They didn't look like that, but that's not a bad guess for what a cordless telephone was going to look like. That's exactly what it was. I thought that was neat. And that was next to of course, on the guy's desk, he had this thing that was talked about earlier. That was Tony talked about it, the intercom with like the 15 different switches for the 15 different lines or something. And, but that was kind of more of a 1950s technology there. Anyway, I thought the cordless telephone was a really neat little trick. Some other things, as somebody, I think it was Brenda, commented, the lights on the side of the spacecraft that indicated that the engines are running were just an elevator panel from an elevator. And there were 2 or 3 columns of a bunch of lights. And so I thought that was an interesting, cheap special effect. They just found some elevator panel and stuck it in there and lit the lights up. I thought it was interesting that they had early computers back then, very early computers, vacuum tube computers. And they had tape drives. Even then, they were new, but they had them. Did you notice the tape drive they used for the automatic navigation system, the autopilot? It had 2 reels, and in between them there was this box with holes in it that had some randomly flickering lights behind it. Well, if you noticed, as far as I could tell, the 2 reels had no tape on them, but they rotated. So they were too cheap to just hook up something with some kind of tape. They just made the 2 reels rotate. There could have been a guy back there with handles spinning them, for all we know. There may not have been a motor. And then they had the flashing light. So that was a really chintzy special effect for the autopilot. This is N5BB talking about Project Moonbase from 1953. I did notice that they talked about how they were going to land the spacecraft. They did not use reaction jets. Instead, they had a flywheel, like a gyroscopic flywheel, and that's how they turned that. And by the way, spacecraft use that now. So spacecraft, a lot of spacecraft have what they call reaction wheels to keep them from spinning. And that's exactly the same technology, but it's bigger stuff now. The reaction wheels get too big, so they have little small reaction jets on the spacecraft, like the Apollo mission. They had little small rockets on the outside. Did you notice there were 3 astronauts landing on the moon? Remind you of Apollo missions? So that was another prediction. Hey, how about their helmets? Those weird skull cappy things. I don't know exactly what good they did. They didn't look like they were thick enough to protect you in case of really cold weather or in case something hard hit you. They were just kind of a little fashion statement, I guess. But all the astronauts had their little skull cap helmets on. Did you notice that when they took off from the Earth, they were crying? They were literally screaming and yelling in pain. I thought that was a little extreme, but it was had to laugh a little bit on it because afterward they seemed to recover pretty good. But they were literally screaming in pain when they were taking off. And maybe Robert Heinlein wrote that in there, that he thought that the G-forces would be so high that they'd be in incredible pain. I did think that the spacesuits were cool. I think, given it was 1953, they did a reasonable guess for what the moon's surface would look like. And it was photographed in such a way that, to me, it was believable. You know, before we landed on the moon, believable to me that in 1953 the moon's surface may have looked exactly like that. It didn't. They had a hard time trying to depict low gravity, so they didn't do any funny motions to simulate low gravity, like on the spacesuit. When the guy fell, they didn't even photograph it in slow motion. He just fell like he was in Earth gravity. But I don't blame them for that. You know, if they had done something like the $6 Million Man slowly moving, or whatever the name of it was, the slowly moving special effects of the 70s, that would have looked really goofy. That's all I've got. Thank you. It's IBB.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you very much for mentioning the first cordless phones. When I was watching the movie, I thought that's going to be a point that has to be brought up, and I completely forgot to bring it up. But thank you for the cordless phones. I noticed it and thought this is good. The skull cap things, I really did not know what they were for. And when the fake Dr. Werner fell, I kind of thought they actually speeded it up, or that's kind of how it looked to me. All right, let's go to Tom. And let's see if he has any news for us on the next movie. This is WA5 PCR running the Afterglow movie net, and we're gonna talk to Tom and see what news he has.
All right. Thank you, Larry, and thanks for doing the net this evening. I'm going to move up a movie that I found that is available. It was requested a while back. In fact, Billy Kip at PDS recommended it probably about 8 months ago, maybe a year ago, but it wasn't available for free, and it is called District 9 from 2009. Now, I would normally put it in the rotation, but I have found that the newer movies come and go so quickly. This has ads in it. I'm sure that Netflix has it without ads or through one of your streaming services. But she particularly liked this film. I did watch some of it, and I think it's a winner, or at least something that would be very interesting. It should provoke some interesting conversation. So I think it was filmed in South Africa. It's called District 9 from 2009. I will send that out through the usual means. You can send me an email if you're not on the list to KE5ICX, Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-ray at yahoo.com if you just want to be put on the email list. Otherwise, just go to the Afterglow Movie Net, Afterglow Movie Facebook page, which is Afterglow and Movie, 2 words, Afterglow and Movie, and you're there. And just sign up there. You'll find the files list and everything going on there. So that's it from me. Next week's movie, District 9 from 2009, KE5ICX.
I get credit because I've already seen the movie. I saw it when it came out, and yes, it is in South Africa. All right. Well, I tell you what, we're going to close down the net, the Afterglow Movie Net. I thank everyone for putting up with my attempts at learning NetLogger. I thank you very much for this painful issue of the net, or painful session of the net. It was painful for me as well. But we're going to shut this net down, and we're going to return this repeater back to normal amateur use. We had, 7 check-ins, and we've run for, 10:30, 11:30, an hour and a half. All right. Thank you, everyone. And we're done.
Thanks, Larry. Appreciate you doing the net. And I think you did fine. Believe it or not, there's nothing wrong with any of that. It's an informal net, and we all get through it. So you didn't have the information that I sent you until the last second, so I think you did just fine. No problems. We'll see you next week. This is KE5ICX.
Tom, thank you very much. And if there's not too much negative feedback, I would consider doing the net next week, we'll see how things progress.
We'll see how it all goes. We just rotate it around, whoever feels like doing it. A lot of times the person that volunteers to do the net control really likes the film or something they really were itching to talk about. So you'd be surprised. Sometimes it resolves itself quite appropriately. So don't knock yourself out. But if you want to, just say, hey, this may be one of those movies. Who knows? KE5ICX.
A5 PCR. All right, I'm going to QSY to other parts and see if anybody else is on. Talk to you guys later.
Hey, thank you, Larry. Don't forget to set your clocks ahead. Thank you for running the net in 5BB.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you very much. Like I said, it was painful, but I think